what has been the hardest thing about being transgender and why? For me, this person who wrote that, not me, Lilith, it's being told I have to be sure when I've told people I finally found myself. That can be a pain in the ass. But yeah. What was it? And I would say we can talk about other people, obviously, but is there anything that's not related to how shitty people are that has been difficult about being trans?
Yeah, I think I think we have to start there, just because we have to.
Yeah.
So I think unequivocally the shittiest, hardest part about being trans is transphobia. Like, it's just the existence of it and the people that are horrible and hate us for the fact that we exist. Like, that is the unequivocally the worst part of it. And up until recent times, it was the dominating culture. Mm-hmm. It's not anymore, but it's still a large, and because it's shrinking and being kind of muscled out of the culture, they're fighting back, and they're loud and they're horrible, and they're trying really hard to just impose their shit on everyone, and that is clearly the worst part of it. It's just the hatred that comes from it.
And if you're a transphobe, it doesn't, whatever you say on YouTube is not going to get you blocked, whether it's true or not. So have at it, apparently, is the attitude of the YouTubes. But don't you ever say anything about...
We're not going to say bad things about YouTube.
That wasn't a bad thing about YouTube.
YouTube, we love you. We love your benevolence and your great algorithm that gets everything right.
But I think the main thing is it is the brain drain of constantly being bombarded with lies about trans people and misinformation about trans people, and then having to deal with those people in public who've never met a trans person and know nothing about being trans, and and you just talking to them, you have no idea, they have no idea what they're talking about, and it's that
just
that
listening
grind.
To them. The dumb shit they say.
But that's the thing, you're saying, what's the most difficult thing about being transgender? It's
that's the most difficult thing. Universally, but I think what the question
aside from that, it's finding clothes that fit someone who's 6'3" and has size 15
shoes are the hardest thing.
Shoes are the hardest thing.
Beside the irony of finally taking a medicine that fixes 98% of your problems, mm-hmm. and makes you feel better than you've ever felt and makes you happy for the first time in your life, despite that, the world, you achieve a level of inner peace that you've never known or could never even dream of obtaining. But at the exact same time that happens, the outside world turns into a flaming dumpster fire of people that hate you and try to kill you. And it's horrible. That's the worst part. But there are other little things, like Lola said, it's fucking hard to find shoes. One of the worst things for me is I hate my beard. Yeah. I still grow a beard, and you don't see it because I don't fucking let you see it. But if I don't tend to this every day and cover it, I have to take concealer onto this fucker. Because you see it, and it's just fucking kills me, and I hate it so much, and I hate shaving, and I feel bad. Not only does it hurt, it also makes me feel so shitty. I just hate it so much. Yeah. And that's one of the worst things for me.
It's all little things I'm going through electrolysis. So every Monday I leave at 5:30 a.m. to drive up an hour to Richmond to have an hour or two, depending, if I can use, a lot of times it's 2 hours of just having hair individually burned off my face
with an electrified needle.
We're just gonna burn every hair individually off my face. Now, I've been doing this for a while. I'm almost done, and it feels. I want to
do it again.
It feels amazing. I shaved yesterday, and you could not feel any hair, and already it's back, and it's but it's like the mental games you have to play. Like, that's the toughest thing is like, I know that I've gotten rid of a lot of hair, but if you rub your finger, it feels like there's no place where there's not hair. But then when you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, wait, there's huge stretches here. And if I just take one finger.
That's the thing is like the place that I had the electrolysis, it's like, I had it like up in here and like, that's the place where it's not like, but down here. There's the worst. And this is
and it's impossible to get this spot. It's impossible to get it smooth. Here. Like, even after you shave, there's still,
Can't do it. It's like, it doesn't matter which way you take the razor, how many times you go over it. Yeah. Nothing can fix that. And it's horrible.
And I would also say, like, a lot of it is, like, stuff that I've kind of worked on my mindset about. And, like, realizing that, like, you know, in your mind, like, you close your mind, you're like, this is how I'm going to look as a perfect woman. And realizing, like, that's not how any of this works. You know, you see a lot of people who are just like, I've been on hormones for a year and a half and nothing's happened. And it's like, well, you know,
it has.
First of all, it has happened. It's just you're fixated on what you want it to be, and you're not fixating on the growth you've gone through. And so it is mindset stuff like that. The one thing we always talk about is like, I'm 17 and I haven't started hormones yet. Do I pass? And it's just like the most gorgeous,
most beautiful woman you've ever seen
in your life, and like
a fucking supermodel,
being like, you know what, I'm on my own journey.
They just put on some drugstore makeup.
Yeah, and I just realized, like, I was 47 when I started. I was already well into male pattern baldness when I started, and I'm on my own journey. And so there are all kinds of little things that your mind is always fighting you with, and it really is about like realizing the peach game. One thing I talked with my hairstylist, who's a trans dude, we had my hair done, went out for dinner with them, and just talked about how anyone who's going back to other people, like, they talk about transgender people, they don't really understand like how right everything feels once you have the right hormones in you. And
they don't understand.
If you could understand how powerful,
shitty it feels to have the wrong one,
and even if you don't have like really hard, like, I would say like dysphoria was. I never had a thing where I couldn't exist because of dysphoria. Like, I shut down. I couldn't go to work because of dysphoria. You know, I was managing. Like, my life wasn't great. It's not as great as it is now, but like, I would never say that I was overwhelmed by dysphoria. Even then, just like changing the hormones, like, it was like night and day. And so I think
it's completely different.
I think people don't understand how important that is. And for me, that was part of my growth too, is realizing like, it's not about like these results or these things I want to be. It's how amazing everything is now compared to where it was.
Well, and just, how much better you feel. Like, you feel correct. I would love to just touch on a little bit, because like, so question asker mentioned, let's go over the thing that they mentioned, their thing that they thought was problematic.
Oh yeah, you have to be sure. You know, like when I tell other people that I found myself, and they come back with, "Are you sure?" You have to be sure before you transition. You have to be sure about being trans.
I'd like to touch on that,
because go for it.
This is one of the things that in the early stages of transitioning, once you just come out in that first year, and like when you're still learning about everything, learning about yourself, all that stuff, you get hit with a lot, especially from your family and your close, generally cis friends that think they fucking know a goddamn thing about it, and they do not. They do not know anything about it, and they make all these out of the gates outrageous claims, and like, there's a handful of things that, I mean, nothing's universal, but that are commonalities. That's one of them. Like, oh, you have to be sure. No, you don't. Let's Mythbusters this shit. No, you do not have to be sure. You can do whatever the fuck you want. And if you want, you can try stuff, and you can decide you don't like it, and you can change your mind. You can change your name as many times as you want. You can change your pronouns as many times as you want. You get to do whatever you want with your own life, and no one, especially someone that has no idea what you're going through, has any jurisdiction over whether or not you can do that. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone. You don't have to justify your existence to anyone. Despite what they'll say, they're wrong and you're right. And that's just one thing I just wanted to get out of there. Another one that I found that was in that vein was I got asked, what does being a woman mean to you? I got asked that by like my family. Like I was in like a hotel room and like there were like all of us were in there. And like we were just talking about it. And like they all hit me with that all at the same time. It's like, well, what does being a woman mean to you? And like it's like you don't have to answer that question.
Yeah.
Like that's the dumbest, most banal thing. Like it's a test. Like they're testing you to see if you pass their arbitrary test. Like, I don't know. What does it mean? That's no cis woman has to answer that question ever. Like, and it's just, but it's one of those things that because they don't understand anything about it, and because the desire to transition is so just completely foreign to a cis person. Because the thing is, when you're the correct gender, like the idea of being the other one is not in any way appealing, and that's okay. It's super okay, but they definitely don't get it. So they attribute all these things, and they did it for millennia. It wasn't even ever considered what I consider it to be, which is like a prenatal condition. It's very treatable. Like that's the other thing.
Eminently treatable.
It's super treatable, and the treatment is not only effective, but very safe, very affordable, and has the highest approval rate of any medical treatment in existence.
But I've heard all of this is dangerous and we don't know the effects.
Right.
Now the new thing is like this Ozempic that people are using for weight loss, and that just kind of came out of nowhere. But like people are getting like this thing called dead stomach, where your stomach stops working because of the medication. It's just like, why? Nice. If you're like worried about people, why are you hassling trans people? Like the medications we're using and the like. These are not just new things.
Yeah, the flavor of the month, the new pharmaceutical that comes out on MSNBC.
I remember what was the one on? Remember in the late '90s, it was Ephedra was the weight loss thing, and then people started having heart attacks. And then we talked about Fen-Phen. People started having heart attacks and stuff. It's like, where was everyone when that was happening? And HRT treatments are decades old. People have been doing this for a long time. Medical science and doctors are on our side, and you don't have to answer someone who's people are, we talk about this all the time. If someone comes at you and they're
it's a hard enough thing though, because you think you do have to answer those questions, and you don't know these things either. You just come out. All you know is you finally mustered the courage to fucking do the hardest thing you'll ever have to do in your life. And then you did it, and then you get hit. And
you started feeling great about yourself, and it feels like you're making
at the very least relief. Like you might not feel great, but you might feel some relief. Yeah. Like and then you get hit with this phalanx of bullshit. It's just like unbelievable. If I can sum up my position on all of this, ignorant cis people are the hardest parts about being trans, and I'm not dissing cis people as a general rule, but like there's a lot of ignorance and misinformation out there, and people really don't get it. They don't get it because they aren't trans. Like only trans people fully understand how shitty it is and how much of a deep compulsion it is to need to do this. Like that consumes everything, and they don't get that because they don't have that birth condition.
What other medical condition do we require other people's opinion on who aren't doctors? Like, can you imagine if you were like in an iron lung and like your uncle came in and was like, "What are you doing in an iron lung? I breathe fine without an iron lung. Why don't you breathe fine?" It's like, you don't know what you're talking about. Why don't
you? Like, it's like it's so ridiculous.
Why is your foot in a cast?
No, my foot's not in a cast. Like, it's like you have to take. Why are you taking cancer treatment? I don't have cancer. It's like, I don't have to go through chemo. Like, it's like people are ridiculous. But that's the hardest part.
I would say internally, outside of like other people, it's
and then the internal stuff. That's
and that's the other thing is like getting over
this might be the whole show.
Getting over your own fears, and a lot of that comes from other people because. You know, like I said, if you went to the doctor and they said, "Hey, you have this, and here's step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4," most people aren't gonna be like, "Why are you doing that?" Like you know, that's not how you handle a ear infection. It's just like, but for some reason, everyone's an expert on if you're transgender. They're all an expert about why you should or shouldn't be doing something.
Not so much that they're an expert; they just have strong opinions based on nothing at all.
They're so not an expert that they feel they know everything. They've gone so far around.
So wild. The liberties that are just taken by the ignorant cis. Like, it's just mind-boggling.
Right. If you don't bother looking up any research, you're 100% right about everything.
Right.
I shouldn't use the word research because they've all done the research.
That's a YouTube video of someone in a truck. That's what research is.
I did have someone, I saw someone was posting and was like talking about like kids and like kids aren't having surgery. Kids aren't even starting out. If they're 4 years old and they say they feel this way, allow them to be the way they want to be, and they might grow out of it. They might not grow out of it, but they're not doing anything.
The truth,
at
too.
4 years old, they're not doing anything. And I just saw this one guy is like, "Oh, these people are quitting in the middle of surgeries." And I said, "Wait, in the middle of the surgery, they're changing their mind? That doesn't seem possible." And he's like, "No,
because they're out cold. They wake up.
No,
I made a mistake.
I made a mistake." He's like, "No, there's more than one surgery, and like they changed their mind." And I'm like, "Some people changed their mind." I'm like, "What kind of medical fact are you coming at me with? People change their mind."
And like some of them have podcasts, very popular podcasts.
A very popular podcast.
Some of them are fucking senators. Like, it's insane. But like, I think overall, like, to condense that question down a little bit, like, I think it's important to remember that you don't need to justify your existence to anybody. And this is, I think, something a lot of baby trans, they grill you and they make you run a gauntlet of these ridiculous questions that you never thought about because they're nonsense and they don't have any relationship to any aspect of reality. But for some reason, these people that are close to you, like your family or your friends, are gonna, or your boss or whatever, is gonna all of a sudden just start demanding answers to stuff they literally just imagined out of nothing. They might as well come from fucking Narnia. Like, they aren't real.
Yeah.
And the best piece of advice I can give to all y'all's baby trans is, at no point do you have to justify your existence to fucking anybody. You don't have to do that. The only time where you might have to do that is to your doctor when you're trying to get HRT. At that point, it's like a job interview or talking to a cop where you got to tell them what they want to hear sometimes.
Yeah.
And that depends on the doctor you got.
Really, the hardest thing is realizing I should have done it 30 years ago. But that's neither here nor there. So, great question. Hopefully, we're able to help. And like,
there's like really a whole lot of hard stuff.
Yeah. What's the hardest thing about doing the greatest thing you've ever done for yourself? It's like,
what's the hardest thing about changing every aspect of your life and aspects of the lives of everyone who's ever known you?
Oh, it's
what's
Verizon.
The hardest thing about that?
Verizon not changing my dead name on my account unless I send them a bunch of shit.
It's like just not being able to change your birth certificate, having problems at the airport, like all sorts of things. Like getting harassed in a bathroom when you just need to pee. Like trying to figure out at what point you need to switch bathrooms. Like that's a hard one.
Yeah,
that's a hard one, and that's like a thing you kind of get hit with right away, early on too. Like because the bathroom conundrum is one. It is a conundrum, and unfortunately, a lot of places are starting to have like gender neutral bathrooms more and more. I see them, but that's here on the West Coast.
Okay,
might not be the case in some places in the United States, but they are more and more where there's the either or, and like that's such a great option when you're in that stage where you're literally in between the two, like where you're in that middle ground where it gets a little blurry and like things are questionable and like you don't know how things are going to go, and it's the second puberty. It's hard. It's fucking hard. The first one wasn't no picnic, and the second one's kind of even harder. So, but it's beautiful and the results are fantastic.
Okay. I'm really in here.
Yeah.
Great question, though. Hopefully, everyone realizes, whatever hardships come your way, you've got this. Your life's getting better every day from now on. Like, embrace who you are and what you're becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.